jokes. People are going to talk about me. They're going to remember me, and they're going to forget all about you. You missed it, right? Should have bought Google stock and should have followed Jesus. That's the two things, right? But that's not what he did, was it? What did he say? Hey, I can't explain it. I don't have all the answers, but come and see. Just come and see. And I love that. That's the simplicity of the invitation. I don't know. I don't know why all those things are happening. I don't know why this is going on in your life. I don't have the answers to all the world's problems, but here's what I know. You got to come and see this Jesus. Because when we meet Jesus, when our lives intersect with Jesus, it's a defining moment. It changes us forever. That Nathanael meets Jesus, and now you got to think everything, he got a front row seat to everything Jesus did. And I don't know about you, but if I'm Nathanael in that case, every time I see a miracle, every time I see a healing, I'm elbowing Philip and I'm going to be like, dude, thank you so much. I'm so glad I didn't miss this. I'm so glad you didn't let me stay behind. I'm so glad that you invited me. See, that's one of those relationships that without Philip, Nathanael misses out. But because he had somebody in his life who had enough faith, and their faith drew him in. That's a great narrative, but you're like, Dave, that's way back, and that's Jesus. And I was thinking about this as I was preparing for this, and there was a couple that Amanda and I met years ago, and I was going to use their story. And as often happens when you're in the church building really early on a Sunday morning, you both get creeped out by random noises you hear, but every now and then you also hear something from God, right? And it reminded me, and God, listen, I did not hear an audible voice. I would not be here right now because I would have died in my office, right? But you just get that nudge, right? You just get that little, hey, you should do this. And it reminded me of our friends Brian and Heather, right? And it got me thinking about the first time that we interacted with them. And I'll never forget it because Amanda, and if you don't know, my wife's name is Amanda, and she's great. She is she's always running for office, right? Like she is kissing babies and shaking hands and, hey, y'all, and all that stuff. And she's in the kids' wing this morning, so I'm going to get away with that for about an hour. But I'll know you told her, so, right? But so she's always invited. So she invites Branson, right? Branson's a student teacher at the time, and that's Heather and Brian's oldest son, and she invites him, and I'll never forget it. They came, we hadn't been here a full year yet, right? And Branson comes, and I think Heather came with him, and we were still trying to figure everything out, and I'll never forget it because that's the day that somebody in the booth accidentally hit the blackout button. And if you think our room is dark now, imagine no projectors, no lights, no anything. And Heath was right about here and was going to fix it and missed the edge of the stage. And he almost bit it. We don't know exactly what happened. Thank the good Lord, words did not come out of his mouth. Because we're not Pentecostal, and that wouldn't have matched up with that even if we were, right? That was oil filled. That's not Pentecostal. But it was a complete disaster. And I remember we went home that day, and Amanda and I were talking like, they are never coming back to church. Never. And about 2 years went by, and they still had not been back to church. And then COVID happened, and nobody was back at church. And then we come out of COVID, and we find out they've been watching online a little. We seem to have ourselves put together a little bit better, right? And they start coming. And Brian and Heather would come, and they'd always sit on the back row. They're on the back row today. That's not their normal, right? Brian must have got here early because they normally get bumped up a few rows, right? But they start coming, and we become friends, and we get to know the family and get to know the boys and all the things, and right? And now we're there. And now it's not just Amanda and Heather, and it's not just Brandon, it's Paxton and Dawson, and now they're part of our small group, and I want to crack a million jokes because Jake got a special prize out of them being in our small group, but you can ask Jake Lyon about that later, about what that is. But as our life began to just grow together, like I just loved it, and I'm so glad. And I thought, man, could you imagine how bad it started, and yet now we're friends? And then on September 1st last year, really all year leading up to, but on September 1st, they had a grandson named Parker. It was Branson and Bailey's first child together. Parker had a ton of heart issues, rare, wild stuff. And I remember our Connect group just kind of rallied around them, and that became like our cause, right? I don't even remember if we did any of the Connect group stuff at all. I just remember we prayed a lot, we talked a lot, and we cried a lot, right? And we just kind of rallied around. And we just kind of went through all that with them, and from a distance as they're experiencing this. And then a month later, on October 1st, little Parker left this life, right? And we were there. And I don't tell you that to make you cry, even though I'm crying, right? I get it. We didn't put out tissues today. That's my bad on that one. That's my way of cracking a joke to break the tension before I lose it. But can I tell you what watching their faith and how they made it through that and how they're still making it through that season, how much deeper my faith is because of that? Just by watching them. Just by hearing what they're going through, hearing how they're rallying and supporting and lifting up their family, right? And all because my wife met Branson, who came on a Sunday that he should have never came and endured the worst service ever, I think, in like church history. And then a pandemic, right? All these things none of us saw, but God knew. God knew that I needed them, and that's selfish, and I get that, but God knew that my family needed them and needed to see their faith and needed to see what they went through so that my faith could grow. And yeah, you can talk to them. They'd probably not, because Brian will bolt out the side door after this. But I bet you they'll tell you that their faith grew. But what I want you to hear today is when you have people in your life, when you have friends and relationships that you draw close to, you get to experience life, and sometimes it's their faith. And watching how they do it deepens your faith. And that's what happened to me, and that's my faith is deeper, it is richer, it is stronger, simply by watching how they maintained their faith throughout that whole process. And that's the point. That's the idea of these providential relationships, that you can't manufacture them, you can't force them, right? But God is guiding, God is shifting, God is positioning people in your life that your faith is gonna impact, but their faith is gonna impact you as well. And there's things that we can do. We can be proactive, right? I can't make a providential relationship. If I could, it wouldn't be providential. But we can be proactive. We can organize settings and environments where we're more likely to encounter those type of relationships. There's things we can do. We can actively live out our faith because our faith grows because of the people we choose to do life with. Our faith grows by those that we surround ourselves with. The author of the book of Hebrews talks about this. Right, Hebrews isn't really a book at all. It's this really long sermon that we're not even sure who wrote it necessarily. But as we kind of get through it and kind of details it, like the author of Romans is challenging these Galileans, these Judeans. He's saying, hey, don't give up on your faith. But specifically, don't give up on your faith in Jesus. Because, right, they were Hebrew people. They believed in God, but they were new to the whole Jesus thing. And they were saying, hey, don't give up on Jesus. Don't give up on your faith in him, because when on the backside your faith intersects with his faithfulness, you'll grow. You'll understand. You'll see more. You'll be empowered to do more. And as he's challenging them to not give up, look at what he writes in Hebrews 10. He says, let us hold, and I love this word, unswervingly. I have seen some of you drive. You drive very, very swervingly, right? I have a 16-year-old in the house who now drives. Number one advice I always give her, do not swerve. You see a cat, don't swerve. You see an old person, don't swerve. All right, maybe swerve a little bit, right? But maybe not, maybe their time, I don't know, right? That's a joke, that is a joke. This is why Amanda has to be in the room, because it prevents me from saying things like that out loud. He says, hold unswervingly to the hope we profess. For he who promised is faithful. That Jesus is faithful. That the one who said he'd be with us, the one who said he'd take care of us, the one who said he would provide, he is faithful. He is trustworthy. Just keep moving. Don't give up on your faith. Don't swerve. Keep a straight line. Get to Jesus as fast and as direct as you can, because he's going to make good. He is faithful. And to do that, to hold on unswervingly, he says, let us consider. Let us think, let us focus, let us be intent on how we may spur one another on. How we can go about this idea that we need one another, right? You can't spur someone else along by yourself, can you? The whole idea of one another means there's more than one of you. So let's consider. Let's think about it. Let's focus on it. How am I challenging? How am I spurring? How am I encouraging someone else? Because we need people, but people need us. How are we doing this? How are we spurring one another on? But what are we spurring them to? Well, to love, right? Because we love love. Love is great, but not just love, also good deeds. It's not just something you feel in your heart. It's something that's lived out in your life. It's something you experience. It's something that you get to see. That's why one of our core values is showing visible love. We don't want to just be known as a church that loves the world. We want to be known as the church that shows love to the world. So we challenge. We give opportunities. We tell you, hey, we got to do more. We've got to get better. We've got to keep going. We've got to keep pushing. Our job's not done yet. Hold unswervingly. Spur one another on toward love and good deeds. And not giving up meeting together. Can I tell you, that may be one of the most misquoted verses in all the Bible. The number of times somebody texted or called or tagged me in a post in 2020 with "let's not stop meeting together," right? And this is not a political thing. This is just a, hey, I've read that verse. We weren't giving up, right? My job kind of depends on you being here, right? My children eating depends on us having. We have a lot of chairs. We want to make sure somebody's sitting in them, right? But we say, oh, we got to meet together. We got to go to church. This was not about church attendance. He says, if you're going to make it, if your faith is going to be the depth and the strength and endure, you've got to do life together. It's got to go beyond just an hour on Sunday morning. It's what are you doing that you're meeting together, you're spending time together, you're spurring each other on, you're encouraging one another. It's not church attendance, right? Nobody's giving up on that. We show up to do these things, not just to check a box, not just because it looks better if all the seats are full. We challenge you to be together so that we can love and spur one another on. It says, not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another. When it comes to our faith, when it comes to our faithfulness, when it comes to recognizing God's faithfulness to us, proximity matters. Proximity matters. You've got to be in a setting where those things are happening. You've got to be surrounded by people that are spurring, that are loving, that are encouraging. You've got to be in that setting. Here's what I've observed over 20 plus years of ministry, right? The first step away from God is a step away from the people of God. Right? That very rarely do people read a book or hear a talk or something and just be like, all right, I'm done. I don't believe in God anymore. That happens. Some people get way thrown off by stuff like that. But more often than not, it's when you walk away from community. It's when you walk away from the people that are loving and encouraging and challenging you, and you get alone. Or let me put it another way. People lose faith when they lose contact with people of faith. right? And that doesn't make anything more true or less true, right? You're smart enough to know that. It's not about truth. It's not about reality. It's about faith. It's about what you believe, right? It's about what you think and you know. It has to do with our faith, our confidence in God. That we lose our confidence when we lose contact with other people that are confident in God. That we drift from community. And when we drift, it's only a matter of time. And that may be your story. You may be back in church for the first time, or you may be watching online and you haven't been inside a church building in years because you drifted and all of a sudden now I've lost faith. You've lost your confidence. And what I'm telling you is to get back, you need people to rally around. You need people to come together because proximity matters. Because it's within that context, it's within that proximity, you see God walking and moving and working in the lives of others. And when you see it, it deepens your faith. And all of that points to the relationships that we talked about. All of that points to this idea that if we're gonna grow an enduring faith, we need others. We need to keep contact. We need to see, because we see God's faithfulness in someone else's life, it makes it easier to trust him in ours, right? When I'm going through a difficult season, it's so much easier now to trust him. Why? Because I figure out all the grand revelations of the world? No, because I've seen so many of you. I've seen Brian and Heather. I've seen Val and David. I've seen Heath and Coy. I've seen so many people that I know and I love and I care about make it through difficult seasons. So I can trust that God's gonna make sure I make it through too. That I can see hope on the other side. I can know that even though it's hard, even though it's especially difficult right now, I can trust him. Because I've seen his faithfulness show up time and time again in the lives of others. While most of you have experienced this in some very unexpected ways, right? There is something you can do to increase your chances of being intentional, being proactive, right? That staying connected is the key. Because staying connected to a community of faith grows our faith. It's the idea that when we're connected, when we see other people, when we walk alongside others, our faith grows because of it. But more than that, it positions you and I to be a catalyst in somebody else's faith story. That if we're in community, if we're staying connected, then we're positioned to be part of their story. We're there to be a part of what they have going on. And our church is built on this, right? Everything we do revolves around these ideas of how do we grow our faith deeper, but one of them is we know the importance of relationship. That's why we challenge you to get in a connect group and share life and pray together and walk through life together and do things together. But it's also why in our kids ministry on Wednesday nights, they're in small groups. And we would have more small groups if more people decided, hey, you know what? I'm gonna serve. I'm gonna lead a small group because I wanna make, and those kids, they build relationships. And parents, listen, you are doing yourself a disservice, right? If I wasn't on staff, I would say you are insanely crazy. That's overkill, right? If your kids aren't involved back there. Because yes, their faith development is up to you, but you know what else? It also is up to all of us. And what we do, how our small group leaders lead kids impacts their faith. So I love the student ministry upstairs. We have every Wednesday, they break into groups, and these adults are texting my kids and they're asking my kids about their day, and my kids are watching. And they're learning what it means to serve and care and give of yourself. See, we've created a model where we get to be one another to one another. And if you want that in your life, if you are looking for that in your life, I know it sounds super cliche. Oh, the pastor gets up and says, we need more people to serve. I get how dumb that sounds. And if I'm where you are, I'm skeptical too. But I'm telling you, it's true. Ask any of our volunteers. Their faith grows by being involved in the faith and the life of others. If you don't feel connected in a church, this church, any church, my first question is going to be, where are you serving? Who are you pouring into? How are you connected outside of the Sunday morning gathering? Because we love that you're here. But if this is it for you, you're missing out. Because you need people in your life. You need relationships. Listen, the easiest thing you can do, and this is why I encourage you all the time, invite your friends, right? The best invitation you can give, come and sit, right? Come and sit with me. Just come and hang out and sit with me today. Why? Because that's the greatest invitation ever. And that single invitation, it could position you as a catalyst in somebody's story. Some of you are here because of that invitation. Some of you have made that invitation and your life forever changed because of it. One invitation. Just, hey, come and see. I don't know if you'll like it or not. Just come and see. And you know when your faith will grow? When that person you invited to come sit with you comes and gives their life to Christ. When you see that person get baptized and go public with their faith, your faith will grow in that moment. Because your obedience, your trust, intersects with the faithfulness of God, and lives are forever changed. So here's how we're going to close today. I'm going to invite you to stand. And I'm going to ask you to do two things. Actually, I'm going to ask you to do one thing, but I'm going to give you two options. First option, those people you thought of in the beginning, right, that have made a profound impact in your life, call them and tell them thank you. You acknowledging the role they played in your faith, that thank you, that gratitude, will forever help their faith grow as well. Because they may not know that they played a role in your life. They may not know the impact they had, but you telling them changes everything. So maybe that's it. Maybe it's a text, a phone call, a letter. People still write letters, right? With stamps and all the things. Just tell them thank you. Or maybe today's the day where there's been people pouring into you and investing into you, and now the greatest way you can express your gratitude is by stepping out and having a conversation that says, today's the day I want to receive Christ. Today's the day I need my faith to grow. Maybe I don't even know what that next step is, but I know I need it. We've got some amazing volunteers in the back that'll help you with that. But I'm going to pray, and they're going to lead us in a song. And during the prayer, during the song, I'm going to challenge you. Don't just be stagnant. Do something. Respond internally. Respond publicly. Do something in this moment that shows love, that shows growing faith, that draws a line in the sand, says, no more, devil, not today. I'm stepping into something better. I'm developing a faith that's going to endure. Heavenly Father, we just thank you. Thank you for the people you've put in our lives. Thank you for all the folks that have so influenced so many of us, that have shown us love, that have shown us grace, that have shown us mercy. God, not because they're amazing people, even though so many of them are, but because they're just reflecting what an amazing God you are. So God, my challenge, my prayer today is that everybody who hears this message will express some gratitude, will reach out and thank, and just let them know what a difference they've made in our lives. but God, that we'll also walk out with a decision made that says, I'm gonna do whatever it takes to get in position. God, so that when your faithfulness shows up, my faith and obedience and trust is already there, and I get to be a catalyst. I get to be used in someone else's story, not for my attention, not for, God, but for your glory. For their good. And God, grow our faith. God, make us a church of men and women who want to endure, who use your faithfulness, who use our stories of obedience to encourage and challenge and spur one another on. God, thank you for loving us. Thank you for your Son. It's in his name we pray. Amen.
You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord. Sing it, your breath. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, we pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. And great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, we pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, we pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. We're gonna sing all the earth, we'll shout your praise. Sing it out. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord.
Hey, I've got a very tangible, real way that you can be one another to one another. You ready? Here in just a few minutes, one Mr. Ben Hayes is going to be baptized. And one, yeah, that's always worth a round of applause. Hey, and so one of the things you can do is not run off. Stick around. Meet us out here in the front. We do baptisms public here. Why? Because his declaration of faith may be the catalyst for somebody else's, right? And we want to learn from each other. We want to be encouraged by one another. So he's going to encourage you by taking that next step. You can encourage him by rallying around. And when he comes up out of the water, assuming mom lets him up out of the water, we'll hoop and holler and cheer and yell. How about that? All right? Hey, thanks for being here. Have a great week. We'll see you next week for part 5 of Deeper.
I gotta go back and check.
kids all the time, and you want to know that they love Jesus and that they have asked him into their hearts, and I know that. And Ben and I have done a lot of talking, and other people in this church, Mark and Amber, of course, and it's just really exciting to see your kids make this decision. So, Ben, my sweet boy, I made notes. You know, I'm a crier, so here we go. Do you believe that Jesus is the Son of God and that he came to save you from your sins?
Yes.
Do you want to follow him all the days of your life?
Yes.
So, Ben, because of what you believe in your heart, I have the honor of baptizing you in the name, oh yeah, we practiced this too. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Thankful for his